Hi everyone, my name's Diabedor, and today I'm going to show you where to find a bunch of early talismans in Elden Ring. They have a lot of different effects, ranging from increasing your damage to raising your stats, and more. These are strong items that can significantly enhance your build, so they're important to get. If you find this video helpful, please leave a like, share the video, and consider subscribing. It really helps me out. To start off, I want to preface this guide by showing you where to find map fragments, because this is a thing that I see a lot of people miss out on. We're going to go to a lot of different places in this video, so it's important that you have the map fragments so that you can see what you're doing on your map and navigate where we need to go. So you saw on the blank map, there will be these obelisk icons that you can mark, and when you go to them, that's where you can find the map fragment for that region, and then when you pick up the map fragment, that'll fill in your blank map so that you can see the details of the area that you're in. So make sure you're grabbing those as you go along. For our first talisman, we're going to the very start of the game at the Stranded Graveyard, which is just south of the first step. So you remember, when you started the game, you go up the elevator you see over there, and that takes you up outside. So we're coming back down here into the Stranded Graveyard. We need to open this Imp Seal door, and this requires 2 Stone Sword keys to open. So we're going to go grab a couple Stone Sword keys. So the first one we're going to get is over at the Stormhill Shack in Northwest Limgrave. You can get here by going up to the Gatefront Ruins north of the first step, and then just follow the road west up to the Stormhill Shack, and then on the corpse right here next to the Grace, there's a Stone Sword key you can grab. And then for the second one, we're going to head over to the Dragonburnt Ruins, which is directly to the east of the first step. So there's some cliffs here that you can drop down. I think 1 or 2 of them might be a lethal fall, but you can pretty easily navigate your way down the safe part of it, and then that'll take you to the ruins. And then at the ruins, there's the one tower. Go inside of there, be careful of the giant rat, and grab the Stone Sword key from there, and then run without getting murdered by those dogs. Once you've got both keys, you can head back to the Stranded Graveyard and use them on the statue to open up the seal. This will use up both of those Stone Sword keys, but it's worth getting. Not only is there the talisman that we're going to grab here, but there's some other good items too. But anyway, so there's this poison lake pool, whatever you want to call this here. I didn't have any armor on, so I got poisoned. If you have pretty much any armor on, then that'll increase your immunity enough that it shouldn't poison you, and so you should be fine. But anyway, so you're going to run down this hill here. There's the chariot that's going back and forth, so once it's coming towards you, you want to duck into one of the alcoves on the side here. And then what I like to do here is I come to the last alcove here. So you see there's a guy that spawns with a crossbow, so let him spawn, knock him down. The chariot will usually kill this guy. Then wait for the chariot to go back up the hill, because when you drop down here, it's going to start coming after you down here, and it has to finish going up that first hill before it can come down, right? So this gives you extra time to get to where we need to go before it comes down. Then you're going to come to this bridge thing here, and you can drop off onto the side of it, down to this lower area. There are 2 imps here, so be careful of them, because they're fucking imps and they're annoying as shit. I tried to run past them. It wasn't a good idea. You should kill them. But when you run past them, you'll come down this staircase here. There's a trap that's shooting out fire in this hallway. So, incidentally, I ended up getting the imps to get hit by the fire by accident, and then I was able to finish them off. But, you know, you're going to want to kill the imps before you come down here. But yeah, so you can bait out the fire, because it doesn't activate until you come close. And then as soon as the fire stops, you want to run in, and on your right, there's an alcove where you can hide. There's an imp inside this alcove, so be ready for him. Beat the shit out of him with your club, or whatever weapon you've got. And then I ended up running out of healing flasks because I was poisoned, and I was like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die, but I ended up having some warming stones on me, so that saved me. So make sure you have heals, and preferably a way to avoid getting poisoned, or to cure your poison. But yeah. So if you have a ranged weapon, then you can hit the pillar, and that'll drop it down so the fire stops. But if not, then you can just, you know, wait until it turns off, and then run out and hit it, and now it's gone. And so what we're going to do is we're going to keep heading east. We're going to go down the stairs into this big atrium room here. And the talisman is that item on the other side of this bridge. Now this room has 2 grafted scions hanging from the ceiling, and when you go across the bridge, they're going to drop down. So be careful of this one, because if it lands on you, it'll do damage. You can just run past it and grab the talisman. I died. That's fine, because you still keep the talisman. The grafted scions don't actually drop anything other than some runes. And so we got what we came here for, which is the Erdtree's Favor, which slightly increases your maximum health, stamina, and equip load. These are percentage-based increases, so the higher your base health or whatever is, then the bigger the increase will be, because that percentage will increase it by a bigger amount. So that's a nice talisman to have if you have a free slot and you don't know what else to use. Up next, we're heading over to the Mistwood Ruins in East Limgrave. You can get here from the Gatefront Ruins, just follow the road to the east across the bridge, that'll take you to the Mistwood outskirts, and then once you grab the map of the area, you'll be able to see the ruins right in the center of the Mistwood, and so you can just place a marker on that and head straight towards it. Be careful because there are giant bears roaming the woods, there's also some bats and stuff too, but the bears are the main thing. So once you get to the Mistwood Ruins, you're going to go over to where the sleeping bear is. There's a bunch of Trina's lilies here, so make sure you grab those too because they're useful. We're not going to use them in this guide, but they're good to have. And so you can just run past the bear and go down the steps into the cellar. Obviously the bear is too big to follow you down. And inside the cellar, you're going to find the chest, which has the Axe Talisman in it. So the Axe Talisman increases your charged heavy attack damage by 10%. A lot of people sleep on charged heavy attacks because, you know, they're slow and people feel like there's not that many good opportunities to use them. But if you look for punish windows, then you can absolutely get these things off, and they do a ton of damage and a ton of poise damage, and you will fuck stuff up if you use them a lot. I promise. Look for opportunities to use them. I'll probably make a video about it at some point. So the 10% increase from the Axe Talisman isn't like a huge amount. It's nice to have it. It's not huge. But there's another item nearby that we can go grab to increase it even more. So you're going to place a marker on the minor Erdtree here, and then you can run up the steps and just dip past the fucking bear and hope that it doesn't murder you. And then when you go over to the minor Erdtree, there's a basin that has the spiked cracked tier in it. This increases your charged heavy attacks by 15% for 3 minutes when you drink it in your Wondrous Physic. And if you head north to the Third Church America, then you can grab the Flask of Wondrous Physic so that you can actually use that spiked cracked tier. So once you have the Flask of Wondrous Physic, you can sit down at any site of grace and select the Mix Wondrous Physic option so that you can put crystal tears in it. These are infinite use items, so you never run out of them when you drink them. You get 1 charge of the flask per life, that resets when you die or when you rest at a site of grace. So don't be afraid to use your Wondrous Physic. And so if you put the spiked crack tier in it, then drinking the Wondrous Physic will increase your charge attack damage by 15% for 3 minutes, and that stacks with the Axe Talisman. So you see here, using no buffs, I got 168 damage. With just the Axe Talisman, I got 185. And then with both the Axe Talisman and the spiked crack tier, I did 212 damage. So that's like a 27 or 26% increase, I think. And it's a lot. And when you upgrade your weapons, that damage really, really adds up. So those are definitely 2 great buffs to use together. For our next talisman, we're going to head over to the War Master's Shack in Northern Limgrave, which you can get by heading east from the Stormhill Shack. And then from the War Master's Shack, you're going to follow the road east until you get to the cliff here. So you're going to go past this soldier camp, and then on your left there's a cliff you can go up. And if you follow the cliff wall, then you'll find this door that leads into the Death Touch Catacombs. So here it is on your map in case you need a point of reference. So we're going to kill the boss of the Death Touch Catacombs, which is an injured Black Knife Assassin, and she will drop the talisman that we're here for. So while you're here, when you come down this first staircase, if you make a right, you'll see this little hidden hallway here. And this leads you to the Uchi Katana, so make sure you grab that. Not using it in this video, it's just a good thing to grab while we're here. So go and activate the lever at the end of the catacombs. It's a very short catacomb, so, just run past all the skeletons. You don't even have to fight them. Activate the lever to open up the boss door, and then when you go back to the entrance, you can head into the boss room. So this is a Black Knife Assassin. You're going to see it's actually pretty weak. I'm not wearing any armor, and I only have 10 Vigor, and you'll see it when it hits me. It really doesn't do a huge amount of damage. When you come to it, you're going to want to have your weapons upgraded at least a couple times. I would say at least plus 2 or 3 is what your weapon should be at. And, you're going to want to have like 15, 20, 30 Vigor. Vigor and weapon upgrades are your most important things in this game. I always say that, but I'm not going to go into detail on that right now. But anyway, so she shouldn't be too hard. The main thing that makes her a pain in the ass to fight is that she just dodges all your attacks. So just, roll, hit, roll, and she shouldn't give you too much trouble. And you also saw she starts at about half health because she's injured. So you should be alright killing her, and once she's dead, she drops the Assassin's Crimson Dagger, which restores your health whenever you get a critical hit, which includes backstabs and riposts. So this is a really useful sustain talisman that I'll talk about in a second, but while we're here, I just want to point out, if you go to the chest after you kill her, then there is a death root in here that a lot of people miss. Not part of this guide, I just want to point it out while we're here. Anyway, so the Assassin's Crimson Dagger will restore 10% of your max health plus a flat 85 points of health whenever you get a critical hit on an enemy. So critical hits are backstabs, like you see I'm doing here. You see when I do the backstab, it refills my health. And it also includes ripostes, which you can get after parrying an enemy or stance breaking an enemy, like you see here. So crits aren't like a random thing in this game, like in Fallout or something. They are specifically backstabs and ripostes, which you can do under specific circumstances against specific enemies. So the best way to use this thing isn't to have it equipped at all times. What I like to do is use it for sustain. So what you do, like you saw here, I had like half health, and maybe you're low on flasks, you don't want to use all your flasks or something while you're exploring a dungeon, and you have an opportunity to get some backstabs on an enemy. So then you can equip the dagger, or the Assassin's Crimson Dagger, and get a couple backstabs to restore your health, and then once you're done with it, you can switch back to whatever other talisman you were using. So I don't recommend having it equipped at all times. I recommend using it when it's needed, right? So you saw there, now I have restored my health because I got a bunch of crits and ripostes, and so now I'm going to switch back over to the other talisman I was using and go about my business. Up next, we're going to head east from the Death Touch Catacombs over to the Saints Bridge. So this is right next to the catacombs. You can clearly see the bridge on your map, and there's a cliff just south of the bridge that we can go up, and that'll take us to where we need to go. So from the bridge, just follow the cliff to the west, and on your left, you will see that there's going to be a little hill here that you can go up. So go up the path, and this will take you over to Alexander the Warrior Jar. Now, this one's going to be controversial, but I recommend doing it, and I'll explain why in a second. So talk to Alexander, he'll ask you to hit him on the back a couple times to pop him out of the hole, and then after that, you can talk to him to get an Exalted Flesh, which I didn't do here, but you should do. So you can kill Alexander now to get the Warrior Jar Shard, which is a talisman we're here for, and this will give you a 10% increase to your Ash of War damage for the entire game, or you can finish his quest line, which takes you to nearly the end of the game, and get the Shard of Alexander, which is a 15% increase, but you only have it for like the last 10% of the game, right? So I recommend killing Alexander here and getting the Warrior Jar Shard as early as possible so that you can benefit from it for your entire playthrough instead of waiting until nearly the end of the game. And then if you go into New Game Plus, then you can get the Shard of Alexander on your second playthrough, So it's a trade-off because you miss out on a couple things and you have to kill your jar buddy and you're going to go to hell for it, but the Warrior Jar Shard is a useful talisman. So you see here, I used the Spinning Slash Ash of War on this guy. Without the talisman, I did 124 damage. With it, I did 137 damage. So once you upgrade your weapons and stuff, it makes your Ashes of War do way more damage, and I think it's worth getting. But it's ultimately up to you. Anyway, so for the next talisman, we're going to head east from the Saints Bridge over to Summonwater Village. Now for this talisman, we're going to need another Stone Sword key. We only need one this time. So the easiest one you can grab is if you head south through Limgrave. You can go over to the Bridge of Sacrifice, which takes you to the Weeping Peninsula, and on the bridge, there's a Stone Sword key you can grab. So just follow the road south. Once you get to the bridge, I like to shoot to the right here so that the guy shoots behind me, and then while he's reloading, you can run up onto the bridge. There's some smithing stones there that I totally grabbed on purpose. And then there's also this blue item here, which is the Stone Sword key that we came here for. And then on the other side of the bridge, there's another set of grace, which you can grab and rest at so the bad guys lose their aggro. Anyway, so head over to Summonwater Village, and on the east side of the village, you will find the cellar, which has the Imp Seal. So there's a bunch of skeletons, and there's also a Tibia Mariner boss here. You should fight the boss, but you can just run past it if you don't want to fight it right now. And so head over to the east side of the village. Here's where it is on the map in case you need a point of reference. Shouldn't be too hard to find because there's only one building over here. And then you will see there's the cellar surrounded by some turtles. You can use the key on the statue there. I want to point out that if you kill the turtles down here, they have a 100% drop rate for turtle neck meat, which can be used to craft pickled turtlenecks. And so if you ever need to farm turtleneck meat, this is the place to do it. And then once you go further in, you will find the chest, which contains the green Turtle Talisman, which will increase your stamina recovery speed by 17.7% while you have it equipped. So, stamina management is a very important skill in this game, and this is a talisman that I recommend not using if you have basically anything else to use instead of it. But you'll see here that it's a nice, increase in your recovery speed. So if you look on the top left, this clip has the talisman equipped, and it does go noticeably faster. You can see here the bar on the bottom has the talisman equipped. I couldn't get these perfectly synced up, but you can see that the bottom one refills faster. So if you have a free slot that you don't know what to put in, that's when you use the green Turtle Talisman, and it's also useful against a couple bosses, like some of the end game bosses. I'm not going to name any names for spoilers. But yeah, so I recommend you learn how to manage your stamina better instead of using that talisman, but if you have a free slot, it's a nice thing to have, and you can get it super early. Anyway, for the next talisman, we're going to head to the Smoldering Church north of the Third Church of America and east of Summon Water Village. I came to the Third Church of America because 1, I didn't grab the Sacred Tear earlier. That's something you should make sure you grab. And 2, because if you head up the hill north from it, you'll find this Scarab here, and when you kill it, it drops the Sacred Blade Ash of War, which is going to synergize nicely with the talisman that we're grabbing. And so from the Third Church, you can head up these Spirit Springs to go up this hill here, and it's a little shortcut that'll take you up to the Smoldering Church faster. So we need to kill an NPC invader to get this talisman, and you'll see when you get close to the church, she starts invading you, and that'll kick you off the horse. So what I recommend you do, there she is, you can run past her and grab the Site of Grace here. You won't be able to rest at the Grace until she's dead, but if you die and you have activated this Grace, then you'll just respawn right here, and so you don't have to run all the way back up from the church or from Summon Water Village or whatever. So when you fight her, she's not too hard. She's kind of annoying, as you're going to see in a second. I went for this fucking R2 and she jumped over it even though my hammer was vertical up in the air over my head. She somehow managed to jump over it and hit me. So that's kind of bullshit. But anyway, so as long as you have a decent amount of Vigor, I recommend you have at least 20, 25 Vigor by this point, and you upgrade your weapons to at least +3. You shouldn't have much trouble killing her at all. I'm doing this with 10 Vigor and no weapon upgrades, and, you know, it only took me 2 tries to get her. So she shouldn't be too hard, and once she dies, she will drop the Sacred Scorpion Charm, which increases your holy damage by 12%, but has the trade-off of making you take 10% more physical damage. Now keep in mind that the damage taken increase only applies to physical damage. So you see on the right, it's only making me take 10% more physical damage. I don't take more magic damage, for example. And so this is really useful because if you go and you equip the Sacred Blade Ash of War on whatever weapon you want, in my case I'm putting it on a greatsword, you can give it the Sacred Affinity and that'll make it scale with Faith and do holy damage. Now on its own, that doesn't seem like much of an increase. You see on the top right, my attack power for right hand armament 1 is 220. When I unequip the talisman, it goes down to 207, right? So it doesn't seem like it's much of an increase because that's only like 13 points of damage. But the thing about Sacred Blade is that not only does the projectile do a bunch of holy damage, but it also buffs your weapon with an extra 90 holy damage for like 60 seconds after you use it. And so now you see, with the talisman equipped, I'm doing 320 damage total because the holy damage from that buff stacks with the holy damage from the Sacred Affinity. So for the damage comparison, the blade projectile does 156 without the talisman, does 174 with the talisman, and you see it also increases my melee damage because without the talisman I did 287 and with the talisman I do 310. So this is a nice talisman to have alongside the Sacred Blade Ash of War because it's a great way to get yourself to just do a whole bunch of holy damage really easy. And enemies in the early game are all weak to holy damage except for like a couple of the bosses. So this is a great way to do a lot of damage really early on. For our next 2 talismans, we head back over to the Third Church of America, and we're going to take the secret teleporter hidden in the pond to the northeast of it, which will take us to the Bestial Sanctum and the Dragon Barrow over in Caelid. So take the teleporter, and that'll spit you out at the Bestial Sanctum. You can open the door right away. You see we've traveled a pretty significant distance. Dragon Barrow is a high-level area, so be careful because the enemies will probably fuck you up here. So go inside the Bestial Sanctum. Don't worry about Geraint, he's not hostile. You can give him that death root we picked up earlier, but that's not relevant right now. And so grab the Site of Grace here. And so what we're going to do is head out from the Bestial Sanctum and make a right. You're going to head northwest until you get to the cliff over here. And then once you get to the cliff, you're going to follow it to the north and look down and keep an eye out for a giant root that you can drop out onto. So it's past the 2 birds that are there. You see that big ass root right there. So we're going to carefully drop down onto that. If you die, you'll respawn at the Site of Grace in the Bestial Sanctum, so don't worry too much about it, though I recommend you spend any runes you have before you come down here, just in case. But yeah, so you can drop down onto the first route, then there's a second route. Don't try to run, don't try to jump, just walk forward and you'll fall off. If you miss, then you can use a double jump to like correct yourself, but preferably you would just land on it, you know, in the first place. So you'll come down to this stony thing here, and then you're going to drop down onto this buttress over here, that'll take you down to the lower level. You're going to take some damage from the fall, so make sure you have heals so you can heal yourself. And then after this, you can just keep navigating your way down. We need to go down 2 stories here. So also you see that hanging bat there. The bats here are really strong and really annoying, so be careful of them. But you can keep making your way down using the buttresses. There's all these little like ledges that you can drop down to, so you can avoid taking fall damage if you use them like carefully. And again, just, you know, go slow. Use the double jumps to correct yourself if you miss, and you shouldn't have too much trouble getting down here. Here I did a double jump to land on the slightly higher ledge there, so I didn't take any damage. So once you've come down to the 2nd level, you're going to head over to the north, and you'll find this platform here that has the Chinquidea dagger on it. So this isn't a talisman, it's a dagger. It gets good strength scaling, and it actually does a lot of damage, and it's basically the size of a straight sword, so it's pretty much a really fast straight sword. But that's not what we're here for. It's just a nice thing to grab. If you keep heading around to the east, you'll find this talisman, which is the Dragoncrest Shield Talisman. Now, if the bats don't kill you here, then you can fast travel back to the Site of Grace to get up from here, because there's no other way out. And so the Dragoncrest Shield Talisman reduces the physical damage you take by 10%. So you can see on the right side of the screen, when I equip it, it increases all of my physical negation by 10%. That stacks with your armor and any buffs that you use, so it's just a really great talisman to have, and you can find upgraded versions of it in later parts of the game, but they're pretty far away from the start, so we're not talking about them here. So for our next talisman, we're going to head south from the Bestial Sanctum towards the minor Erdtree that you see off in the distance. I managed to aggro the Blackblade Kindred there, so be careful not to get murdered by him. So you're going to go towards the huge bridge that you see here, and there's a Site of Grace on the bridge, so make sure you grab it, because we're going to run past this dragon, and if the dragon kills you, then you want to respawn at the Grace there. So when the dragon sees you, it'll do this big roar, and while it's doing that, you can just run past it, and as long as you keep running, then it can't catch up to you, so it shouldn't be much of a threat at all. So head toward the tree, and then once you get to it, you're going to go around behind it and find the Spirit Spring, jump up it to get on top of the cliff, and you'll see on your left is Fort Faroth, which is where we're going to grab the talisman. Chances are you won't have the map of the region, but here it is as a point of reference in case you need it. The map is to the west of the fort. You can follow the road west to it. But anyway, so make sure you grab the Site of Grace here, because the Dragon Barrow is an endgame level area, so the enemies here hit really hard. The bats here in particular will fuck you up, but you can just run past them all, and once you get to the ladder, they can't follow you up the ladder. I got poisoned, but it doesn't matter because this is a small fort. So at the top of the ladder, there's a chest. Grab the item out of that. It's not relevant for this guide, but, you know, grab it while you're here. We're heading over to that hole with the ladder that you see off in the distance, so you can drop down onto the roof here, and then just run past. A bunch of soldiers will spawn, but you can run past them really easily. Once you drop down here, there's a giant rat on your left, so be careful of him. I panic rolled because it didn't attack when I expected it to. Grab the golden rune, then turn around and jump over to the secret attic. When you come around the corner here, there's 2 more giant rats, so be careful of them. You can drop down into the second hole, and then you're going to grab the Radagon Soreseal Talisman. If you get lucky, you can crouch down and the rats will lose their aggro, and you can fast travel to the Grace. Or just let the rat teleport you back to the Bestial Sanctum, because I didn't touch the Fort Faroth Grace. Anyway, Radagon Soreseal increases your Vigor, Endurance, Strength, and Dexterity by 5 each, but it makes you take 15% more damage from all sources. So you see here, when I equip it, my stats go up, but my damage negation goes down by 15% because of that decrease. So this is a talisman that's useful in the early game when your character is a low level. It's going to take too long to talk about here, so I'm going to write about it in the description, but basically, since it's increasing your stats, that means it's increasing your defense and it's increasing your vigor. So your defense is different from damage negation, and as long as those 2 things go up by more than 15%, then the Soreseal is worth using because that'll cancel out the 15% extra damage that you take. And so it's useful up until you have about 35 Vigor. Once you have 35 Vigor, then you want to stop using the Soreseal. I see a lot of people use it in the late game. You don't want to use it once you get past, like, Liurnia, okay? Stop using the Soreseal past the early game, because after the early game, all it does is hurt you and make you take more damage, and you should have plenty of levels to work with when you start leveling up your character. For our final talisman, we're heading up to the Purified Ruins in Liurnia of the Lakes. So there's 2 ways to get to Liurnia. You can either go through Stormveil Castle, which involves killing Margit and Godric, and then you can take the rear exit out of Stormveil, which takes you directly into Liurnia. Or, if you haven't killed them yet, then you can go to the Broken Bridge directly to the east of Stormveil, and there's a secret path. When you drop down off of it, you'll see there's like a cliff that you can go to, and that takes you around the cliff that goes around Stormveil, and that's a secret shortcut into Liurnia. And so once you get to Liurnia, you just head north down to the lake level, you'll grab the map just south of the Laskyar Ruins, and then directly to the east of the Laskyar Ruins, you'll see the Purified Ruins on the shore over there. And so we're going over to the big building in the Purified Ruins. So here is the Purified Ruins. Careful, because there's a lobster patrolling out on the lake there. But anyway, so once you get to the Purified Ruins, go up to the biggest building here, and you're going to drop down into the cellar here. You're going to break through the wood to get down into it. Once you go down into the cellar, open the chest, and you will find the 2 Fingers Heirloom. So the 2 Fingers Heirloom increases your faith by 5 points while it's equipped. And unlike Radagon's Soreseal, there's no downside to this. It doesn't make you take more damage or anything, and so that makes it a lot more useful throughout the entire game. So you might be looking at this talisman and saying, Diabetor, my character is a strength build, why do I need plus 5 faith? And I'll talk about that in a second. But first, we're going to head over to a couple other places and grab some spells. So over here, we're going to Fort Gale, just south of the Smoldering Church. You saw I made a shitty little map there. And if you go around behind Fort Gale, you'll find the Flame Grant Me Strength spell, which is a really useful buff to have, which I'll talk about in a minute. And then also, if you head north from the Purified Ruins, so here we are at the Purified Ruins, to the east of it is the Liurnia Highway. You can grab a set of grace here, and then take the right road and follow that north, and that'll take you up to the Artist Shack over by the Carian Study Hall. You can take this rock bridge to go across this ravine here, and that'll take you to the Eastern Tableland, where there is a Site of Grace on the northeast side of it. And then in the center of the Tableland, there is a Fire Monk camp where we're going to go grab the Flame Cleanse Me spell. So head into the camp, and on the corpse right here, you will find Flame Cleanse Me. And in case you're unfamiliar with casting incantations, you need a Sacred Seal to cast them, so you can head over to the Round Table Hold, and go on your left, you'll come to the Twin Maiden Husks, and they sell the Finger Seal for 800 runes. It has like no faith requirements, so any character can use it. It's a measly 800 runes, so I just use a shitty golden rune to buy it. And so the strength of the seal doesn't matter, because we're casting buff and utility spells that don't scale with the incant scaling on the seal. So any shitty seal like the Finger Seal will work. And so if you go and sit down in a Site of Grace and go to Memorize Spell, you can equip Flame Grant Me Strength and Flame Cleanse Me. You'll see that Flame Grant Me Strength requires 15 faith to cast, and Flame Cleanse Me requires 12 faith to cast. Now my character only has 10 faith because, you know, I just started, and say you're a strength build or something, you might not be leveling up your faith. So these spells are super useful to have because Flame Cleanse Me can cure poison, and more importantly, it can cure Scarlet Rot. So you see the poison back at the fucking Stranded Graveyard that I was getting owned by before. If I had Flame Cleanse Me, I can just cast that, and boom, it cures it for free. It costs a little bit of FP, but it's basically nothing, right? And then so what you can do is you can equip the talisman, cast the spell, and then switch back to whatever other talisman you want to use, right? Same thing for the Scarlet Rot here in Caelid. Without the talisman equipped, I don't have the faith to cast Flame Cleanse Me, so I equip the talisman, cast Flame Cleanse Me to cure the rot, and then after that I can switch back to the talisman that my build is using, right? Because I don't need the plus 5 faith at all times because I'm not constantly casting Flame Cleanse Me. So having this talisman in your inventory gives you access to a bunch of buff spells and even some damaging spells that you might not otherwise have access to because you're not leveling up faith or whatever, right? So let's say you started as a prisoner who starts with the lowest faith in the game at 6 faith. All you have to do is put 1 point into faith and then equip the 2 Fingers Heirloom, and that'll bring you up to 12 faith so that you can cast Flame Cleanse Me. Or if you bring your faith up to 10, then you can equip the 2 Fingers Heirloom, bring your faith up to 15, and you get access to Flame Grant Me Strength. And you see here, there's also other incantations you can get, like Magic Fortification to increase your magic negation, right? So even if you're not a faith build, you can use that talisman to get access to some early buff spells and utility spells like Flame Cleanse Me, and that gives you a lot more utility in your build so that you can work a lot better in a lot more situations. And so that one is a really good one to have, and honestly is probably the most important talisman on this entire list. So that concludes this guide. I'll probably write down a couple more talismans down in the description that you can Google and keep an eye out for. There are some that I didn't include, like the Claw Talisman, because that involves killing Margit to enter Stormveil, and then you got to navigate your way through Stormveil to get it. So the Claw Talisman's really good because it increases your jump attack damage, but I didn't want to spend another, 15 minutes of this video, because it's already as long as it is. I didn't want to spend another 15 minutes showing you how to fight Margit and shit. But yeah, so I'll probably write down more down in the description if you want to find some extra ones. As always, if you found this helpful, please leave a like, share the video, and consider subscribing because those things all really help me out. My name is Diabetor, and I will catch you Later.